All right, today we're going to look at a project that could, honestly, completely change how we use the internet. We are talking about giving your browser a real memory, not just a history list, but a memory that gets not just what you did, but why you did it. So, let's dive in. Think about the last time you were deep into some research, or maybe you were planning a trip. You probably had, like a dozen tabs open, right? You're jumping between articles, reviews, maps, a whole mess of things. But then you close that window. What happens when you come back tomorrow? All you have is a long list of links. Your browser remembers where you were, but it has absolutely no idea what you were thinking or what you were trying to do.
And that's really the heart of the problem. Your browser history, it's just a simple list. It's a log in chronological order of the sites you've been to. But it's totally blind to how they're all connected. It doesn't know that Wikipedia page, those 3 product reviews, and that 1 YouTube tutorial were all for the exact same project. To the browser, they're just disconnected dots.
So how do we fix this? Well, that's where this project, the Session Ingester, comes into play. Now, the name might sound a little technical, but the idea behind it is actually pretty simple. It just takes in your browsing session and turns it into something that actually makes sense. The whole goal here is to change your browser from just a passive window into an active partner that gets your train of thought.
Okay, so how does this actually work under the hood? Well, step 1 is all about capturing the data. The Session Ingester basically acts like a quiet observer inside your browser. It uses standard APIs, the same kind of tools that regular browser extensions use to log your activity. Just think of it like it's keeping a very detailed diary of your digital journey.
And it's grabbing way more than just the website addresses. It's looking at how long you're actually spending on each page. That's what we call dwell time. It's keeping track of which tabs you're actively looking at versus the ones just sitting in the background. And maybe most important of all, it's mapping out the paths you take, the breadcrumbs you leave as you click from one site to the next. These are the real building blocks of context.
But, just capturing a ton of data is only the beginning. The real magic, the really cool part, happens when the Session Ingester starts to make sense of all of it. It takes all that raw, messy data and starts building it into something called a knowledge graph.
So, what in the world is a knowledge graph? Well, think of it less like a list and much more like a map. It's this living web of connections that shows the relationships between all the different websites and ideas you've been looking at. It understands that you went from this page to that one, and it knows that these 5 tabs over here are all part of the same research session. And yeah, this comparison just nails it. Your standard history is just a flat list of disconnected links. It completely forgets your why. But a knowledge graph, that's a web of connections, of context, that actually remembers your train of thought. This is the fundamental upgrade we're talking about here. So how does this Session Ingester actually build this cool knowledge graph? Well, it uses a specialized language called KickLang to run the whole show. You can think of KickLang as the set of instructions for a little 3-step assembly line that turns all that raw data into meaningful knowledge. And this right here is where it all kicks off. This line of code, it defines the Session Ingester module. Now in this world, a module is basically a self-contained recipe. It lays out every single step the system needs to follow to process your browser data and build that graph. So let's break down what's actually in this recipe.
Inside this module, we've got a team of 3 specialists, and each one has a very specific job. There's a researcher, an analyst, and a planner. Seriously, think of them like a little data science team that lives right inside your browser. Let's meet them one by one.
First up on the team, we have the researcher. And as you can probably guess from the name, its job is to go out and find the data. It's the boots on the ground, just gathering all that raw information about what you're doing in your browser. And here's its exact command. It's told to find the entity browser tabs, which is really just a fancy way of saying, go find all the tabs you have open right now. You can see here, it's limited to 50 tabs for this run. So the researcher gathers all that up and passes it right along to the next specialist on the team. Next in the pipeline, the analyst takes over. The analyst is our pattern finder. It gets that raw list of tabs from the researcher, and its job is to immediately start looking for connections. Its whole mission is to turn all that chaos into some kind of order by grouping related things together. And here's how it does it. The analyst is told to cluster the tabs by their view domains. Now that sounds complicated, but all it really means is it groups tabs together based on the website they're from. So all your Wikipedia tabs end up in one bucket, all your Amazon tabs in another. Each one of these new clusters is now called a session, and it represents a specific task you are doing.
And finally, the planner steps in to add the finishing touches. The planner is the strategist of the group. It takes those nice, neat clusters from the analyst and adds that crucial layer of meaning and context. This is the step that turns simple groups of tabs into something really intelligent.
So the planner's key move is the link command. It links the sessions to something called a trait, which is just a piece of descriptive info. In this case, it's linking our new sessions to the trait ActiveToday. This is exactly like putting a label on a folder. So now it's not just a random cluster of news sites, it's the news I read today. This is where the real context, the why, finally comes into the picture. Okay, so let's just take a step back and look at what we've actually done. We started with just a jumbled mess of open tabs. The researcher went out and gathered them up, the analyst sorted them into neat piles, and then the planner came along and gave those piles meaning. In just 3 simple steps, we've turned a chaotic bunch of data into a structured, intelligent map of your browsing. We've actually created insight.
And this is the final product of that whole process, outputGraphUpdates. This is the payload of new information that gets added to your browser's big knowledge graph. So every time this process runs, it's adding new connections, new insights, new context, making your browser's memory richer and way more useful over time. So what does all this actually mean for you? Well, it means your browser could have a persistent memory, one that doesn't just disappear when you close a window. It means you could have a map of your own thought process, a way to literally retrace your steps and rediscover your own ideas. And, maybe most excitingly, it opens the door for a whole new generation of smarter tools that can actually understand what you're trying to get done.
So I'll leave you with this question to chew on. If your browser truly understood you, if it knew not just where you've been, but where you were trying to go, what would you build with that? What kind of tools would you want it to have? The possibilities are pretty amazing to think about.